This is the Wii Mini, and it's probably one of the weirdest revisions I've ever seen for a console. Now, this came out around the same time as the Wii U. Nintendo released this as a cheaper, cut-down version of the original Wii, the game system that a lot of people picked up as their first console because of Wii Sports. And of course, this hit the mainstream and went really big, so Nintendo decided, we'll cut it down, we'll release it for $100, starting in Canada, and then the following year it found its way into the US, where it was packaged with Mario Kart. It's the same in Canada, but packaging with Mario Kart was an interesting idea. Either way, this now, I don't know why you'd buy this thing. It's pretty much a waste of money at this point. Now you might be wondering, why am I saying that this is a waste of money? Because it does look better than the original Wii. I actually think this looks a lot better. In fact, let's actually cut to the camera here, and you can see it's got this really nice red and black design, right? It has Wii right on the top, tactile buttons here, and it's top loading. I actually like that a lot because you don't have a slot loading that can have stuff jammed in it. It's all right here. You put the disc in, you close it, and you go. So far it seems great, but that's where things start to kind of fall apart. See, if we shift over to the back here, you'll notice an interesting thing right away. There's only one USB port, so they eliminated a USB port. We still have our standard ports here, sensor bar, the AV out, and then the power. There is no component, by the way. Component does not work here. It is simply a 480i composite image. A very odd cut down, considering I don't really know why they had to get rid of that. And that's going to be kind of the common theme going around this system is, why did they cut that? Okay, just remember that as we go through here. On the bottom we have a couple of rubber feet where the screws are hidden. And then we also have on the side here our sync button. Now, if we kind of look around, you're going to start to notice there is no SD card. There's nowhere to put it. No SD card slot. They eliminated that one as well. Yes, they've eliminated quite a bit. There is no Wi-Fi, so there's no internet access. It appears you cannot do it either with a LAN adapter. And they also cut out GameCube support, something they had done prior though, so that's not like new or exclusive to this system. They had like a family system they introduced that got rid of the GameCube ports and the GameCube backwards compatibility, which I still think is an awesome selling point for just a Wii in general, one of the standard Wiis that you can get from the early days of the Wii where it had the GameCube ports. That made a lot of sense. That's a good thing still to buy now. Component support with GameCube for about $60 or $70. Same price as this, by the way. Yeah, makes sense. So think about it this way. You have this very small system, and you can only play Wii games. You cannot access the internet, which means you can also not do something like Netflix on this thing, right? Think about it that way. This could have been a really cool $100 system when it launched, coming with a Wii Motion Plus controller and all the cables as not only a way to play games, but also a multimedia box. That would have been a really cool thing for Nintendo to sell, rather than try to cut it down in price and remove things that probably didn't need to be removed. Why would you remove the Wi-Fi chip when it would have probably still cost relatively the same? I mean, I don't think it would have really saved them that much money. And at that point, it's much more interesting to market. Sure, Nintendo said, we think this would be something better for people who don't want to go online and they just want to play just games in general and they don't want any of the extra stuff. But I mean, the extra stuff is a benefit, and would it really hurt the wallet that much on their side if you have things like Netflix just pre-installed? You don't need the disc, it's just there. But I guess there was a cost savings measure if you were a parent and you just wanted to get this for your kids. You don't worry about them going online, they're just playing Mario and Donkey Kong and Smash Bros. Then okay, I get that. But at this point in time, I don't really recommend anyone buying this thing because you can get this for the same price as a regular Wii. This one cost me roughly $65 shipped, whereas I could just go to GameStop and buy a Wii for $70. So why would I buy this one? Well, we're going to take it apart as well just to see what they changed inside. So let's do that now. So we have our feet here. These are actually hiding the screws that we're going to get to. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling these guys off carefully. They're stuck to it. You could also not modify this system, from what I can tell. Maybe some people have been able to, but there's no SD card slot or anything, so I don't really know why you would attempt it or even get into that when, again, you have better results with the regular Wii. We also have our battery on the side here, a little CMOS battery you could take out. It kind of saves the clock and any other data that it needs to while it's powered off. And after removing those 4 screws, I should be able to pretty much flip it over, and the top just kind of comes right off. That's the beauty of these top-loading systems, whether it's this or like a PS2. Generally, you take the top right off and you get to everything, which is good. I do, like I said, I like the look of the system. I do like the top-loading spring-loaded design here as well to kind of flip up and get to the where you would put the disc in. So everything's kind of just mounted and spring-loaded there. So you push down, has a mechanism that pushes that to the side and then lets the top fly up. And it has some pretty strong springs in the back here, so it does kick up with some force. It's not like a slow push. It's like right away. So that's good. That actually gives it a nice feel when you do press it. Here is our top-loading disk drive here. We have our power button as well as sensors for that door when you close it. So when you close it, it tells it, hey, I am closed. You can start spinning and reading. And then we do have our, looks like a plug here that runs to, what do you run to? We're going to find out. So let me go ahead and get this guy out, and we can get this button board off. I probably don't have to take it off because it's not really in the way technically, it seems, because the board is pretty small. So let me go ahead and take this guy off here. And at that point, we should actually be able to play around and get inside of this drive. I don't think anything's really holding it down other than a few screws on the outside. So a couple of these screws out around the edges here, and the actual disk drive part just lifts straight off. It actually takes the power board with it if I leave it plugged in here. I assume this just uses some of the power straight up, and then it actually connects for communication to the board down there. But let me actually pull this guy off as well. And we can actually see our drive board here. People have asked if this drive would work with other Wii systems. Based on just what I'm seeing here and from memory from the other ones, I don't believe so. I don't even know if the laser... So the laser that I'm seeing here, if I just kind of take a quick look at it, let me pull this down. This reminds me of a laser from a late generation Wii, one of the ones that did not have GameCube support. That's what this ribbon cable is reminding me of here. So it would probably work as a laser placement for one of those, but for one of the older ones that plays GameCube games and everything, probably not. I also do like the design of this press down here, where you actually push it down into the board, and that's how it actually connects. That's believe it or not, a cost-saving measure. Instead of having to have extra ribbon cables and everything and power plugs in there, you eliminate all of that because the Wii originally had 2, a power plug that would actually run from the drive to the board, and then a ribbon cable for communication. This eliminates the need for that, and it just plugs right in just like that. Notice they've also saved on a lot of things for the drive itself, the mechanism. Remember we did the Wii teardown before, and it had a lot of stuff going on just to pull the disc in, start to spin it and read it and everything, and then eject it all correctly. This, of course, eliminates all of that. You have to manually put the disc in, push it down to the spindle, and then close it. It doesn't need nearly as many sensors or gears or anything to make all that work. We also have our single fan in the back. Again, similar to the Wii, that's not new or anything. The Wii has a single larger black fan in the back as well, and that'll just unscrew and pop right up without too much issues. I only see a few more screws around the outside, and then I think we're right to the motherboard at that point, which is much easier and faster than the regular Wii, which you guys saw yourself, takes forever to get to the motherboard. So something that's weird about this black plastic part here at the bottom, it kind of has this weird sliding mechanism or method to get it out. Once you unscrew a few of these, it then slides down to pick up. It doesn't just outright pick up. You actually have these metal bracings here that actually lock it into place. That's a very odd thing, and I'm not really sure why they did that, but it's something that they apparently did for whatever reason. Again, believe it or not, maybe to save on screws, using the minimum amount to put this thing together. These heat sinks are very, very small. They've definitely used less aluminum, I guess, for this. For the heat sink here, it's actually kind of impressive to see how small they made the heatsink for this. Although I haven't seen the chips yet, I assume it's the exact same that they used for the other Wiis at that point. And the technology in the Wii it's pretty old at this point. I mean, think about this. This came to Canada as its first release in 2012, and it was already basically using GameCube parts for like the processor and everything. They did change a few things up, but for the most part, this was something that was around in 2001 essentially, and they were still selling it then, and they were having a hard time still getting it down to $100 without doing all these cutbacks. But just looking at like the heat sinks and the way that they've already put this kind of together, it is impressive that they went this far just to get down to $100. I don't think they needed to go this far, to be honest, to get it down to $100. And I really do think they left some stuff on the table there. So we've now removed it from the plastic. It does have a nice metal shell on the bottom. Again, Nintendo was pretty good about the Wii. They kept the board very, very straight and sturdy, which was nice to do that. And this still has really a nice thick shell. This pops off, and I can see our 2 chips here. Let me pull this guy off. So there we have it, Nintendo 06, Hollywood, and Broadway. They're both there. Looks pretty much the same as the regular Wii, nothing fancy going on there. Here's our Bluetooth module at the front. These usually just unclip and unplug without too much issue. So again, nothing crazy there. It's very, very odd to see all of this cut down to get to that price point. I'm also seeing a lot of unpopulated areas on this board, which means there may be pads for things like possibly for Wi-Fi maybe. There's just a lot of empty real estate on this board where it almost feels like they were supposed to have capacitors or leads maybe. Like, I bet you this thing may have been able to do something like component out, like the standard, you know, the blue, red, and green, for example, those cables that you could get for the original Wii and use that. I bet you this still technically has the leads and everything for it, but they just didn't hook them up. Very possible, because they're using the same GPU and everything, and they don't have that, and I don't understand why they don't have that. It's just like one of the weirdest things to cut out. I really don't think that would have hurt their pricing, but they did, and all it really does is hurt the end user experience. I will at least give them credit, the board is smaller. They managed to shrink it down even further, and I guess that's pretty neat to do that, although revisions usually shrink. If you look at different 360 boards, like the 360 Slim that came out, that was actually a pretty cool revision because it moved from 2 chips down to an APU, essentially, where they had 1 chip on the board, and it ran cooler and really didn't have the same failure rate, obviously, as the older Xbox 360, because nothing ever will, I don't think. But here we are now with the Wii that managed to get even smaller. I like the look of it. I like the top-loading design, but I don't think everything they removed from this board was worth doing so. Should you buy this now? Would I buy this now if we weren't doing this? No, I would just buy a regular Wii. I would get the component out. I'd get the GameCube compatibility. I'd get the Wi-Fi, and I mean, it's probably one of the best systems to modify and run homebrew on at this point. This system may have had a place when it came out specifically for the pricing. However, at this point, there's really no need for it. It would be a collector's item, and that's probably about it. Too many things have been cut off, and that's kind of where I'll leave it there. Thanks guys for watching. This was the Wii Mini, an interesting revision. Think about it this way. This was Nintendo's first real home console revision since the Super Nintendo. The 64 didn't have one like that, and the GameCube didn't either. So this was it. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you give the video a like if you liked it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys in the next video.